Good evening and welcome to Laughing Monkey Music. Today we have Rickey Medlocke on from Blackfoot and from Lynyrd Skynyrd. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How you doing, Sean?
I'm doing good. Look at you in your tank top in Florida, being warm and everything.
Oh man, it's been you know what, man? It's been a beautiful, absolutely beautiful winter down here. A very picturesque winter. We've had a few cold spells to where it has dipped down into the upper 30s, lower 40s. Which I'm in Southwest Florida. I'm in Fort Myers, which is all the way down at the extreme end on the West Coast. But we've had some beautiful stuff, beautiful weather down here this year.
We were like in the 40s. I'm ready to put my shorts on. I'm up in New England and Connecticut. So I love the season. But in the summertime, I'm not going to be envious though, because I can't deal with the humidity. So,
it gets hot. Yeah.
A little too hot for me down in Florida. Well, if we touch base, maybe we can talk a little bit about your history early on and kind of see what's going on now with you and the bands. You've been playing like professionally, probably like 50 years now, right? If so, maybe more, 69.
Well, actually, it's kind of interesting. I actually started playing, if you really want to say it.
Yeah. No.
Professionally, I've been playing. I started with my grandfather on a country music show when I was 3 years old.
Wow.
And I was playing a miniature banjo. And he played banjo and he taught me. He saw that I was, starting to pick up, music, wanting to know music at a very, very early age. And so he bought me this miniature banjo. And interestingly enough, he taught me, we learned a couple of songs together. So he was a musician that was in and out of Nashville with a lot of your old country stars. And he was a road guy. And, he played pretty well much. He played all the instruments that you would ever need in a band. I mean,
really,
if somebody needed a banjo player, call Shorty. Somebody needed a fiddle player, call Shorty. Somebody needed a, guitar player or whatever, call Shorty. So when he'd be home, he'd had his own bands. And what he would do, he would go on this TV show that originated out of Jacksonville on the station, which is now a CBS affiliate. It's called WJXT, but back then it was called WMBR. And the show was called the Toby Dowdy Show. Mm-hmm. And it was a country show. And so he went to Toby one day and he said, look, my grandson, Ricky, who, his grandmother and I have adopted now. He's our son. He said, I've taught him how to play banjo and learned a couple of songs together. And would it be okay if we did a guest spot on here? He said, I think it would be a real cool novelty thing, Yeah. Well, back then, being that young, I wasn't a great singer, and I wasn't
No, but 3. I mean, my grandson's almost like 2.5, and I'm just teaching him instruments. I couldn't imagine that. This is crazy.
I have pictures of it of us on the TV show, and when you're a kid, that young, you're just, it's like, what is this, Yeah. So we would just go out there. So the very first time we went out and we played a song together, and the response to it was overwhelming enough to where I became kind of a regular on the show with my granddaddy. And it was for 5 years until I was 8 years old. And in that time, growing up, the one thing that I really wanted to learn to play was guitar. And I picked up playing guitar when I was 5. And then wanted to learn how to play drums. I started playing drums at 8. And, thus was my musical career, So I had been making money ever since I was a young child. And it was, I was raised in that kind of family, you know, being raised in a music family. My uncles, they played. My biological mother, she sang, and she she had a beautiful voice.
Yeah.
She sang in bands. And you know what, man, that side of the family was just really really interesting in the fact that where the musical heritage came from, because it all started with my granddaddy. Actually started with my great grandfather. My great grandfather and my great grandmother, whose son was my granddaddy that ended up being I was raised with. They were sharecroppers in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
And they worked on this man's great big farm. And they worked alongside an African-American family that lived across the road. And that family had musicians in the family. Ours had musicians in the family. And they would get together on Sundays, both families would, and pretty well make, you know, they would make food together and make music together and intertwine, and, you know. So really my granddaddy came up, actually, I like to say, and he was, but he was a Mississippi Delta blues guy. That was his really, the way he really came up. He learned all that old blues stuff, country-ish, bluegrass things, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just, you know, I always like to say to people, he was far more talented, I think, than I was. I think that he was probably one of the best musicians that I was raised around. He could play everything. And not only did he play all these instruments great, I mean, he just played them really great.
How old was he when he passed? How old
70.
Were you?
He was 70 years old.
And how old were you?
And we were at Blackfoot at the time.
Okay, so he saw some success from you.
And he did see, and you know, here recently, I got hold of some photos
mm-hmm.
that I can hold up to the camera for you to see.
Sure.
But it's my old man on stage with us, with Blackfoot, you know, because he wrote the song Train, Train.
Yes, that's fantastic.
And yeah, and I mean, he would come out and he would tour with us. He would go on the road with us. And I tell you what, man, it was like, it was a real phenomenal thing to watch him be on the road with us, because he would come out and he was a stone entertainer anyway.
Mm-hmm.
He loved to entertain people. And you know what, man, we used to just love to have him on the road with us.
That's
Here's a shot.
Okay. Yeah.
There he is.
Very cool.
And it was really cool, man. There he is. Doing kind of the rock and roll thing, you know. But it was really cool, man, to be raised like that and be in that environment and learn.
To have him come back on with you to, you know, almost like do the same thing. It's kind of a full circle type of thing, and it's kind of, he must have really been tickled to be able to do that. It's got to be. I couldn't imagine that. That is a good story. But yeah, so what he did, Train.
Well, he wrote the song Train.
Right.
And the way that whole thing was came about was kind of by just chance.
Yeah.
The band was up in New Jersey, and we were up there, and we had gone back up there. This is after I'd gotten out of Skynyrd the first time. And we had gone back up to live in Jersey. A lot of gigs up there in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Connecticut, you know, Long Island. And there was a lot of clubs. And so we signed with Atco Atlantic Records. And we were busy putting the songs together and writing and stuff like that. And so our producer, who was also our manager, which I'm still in with as a manager, Al Nally.
Wow.
He said, you know, we need one more song to really finish this, you know, to really finish this record off. And I was sitting on the drum lift, you know, I was sitting up there on it, and I'm fooling around on my guitar, and all of a sudden it just kind of hit me. You know, what about Daddy? What about my old man's song, Train, Train? And so I come out and I said that to the band. I said, you know, the old man's got a song called Train, Train that I think that we could turn into a great, you know, into a great rock song, you know? And I started messing around with it on the guitar and kind of got the chord structure together and the vocal, and the band kind of fell into it. And man, within about 30 minutes, we had the song worked up. And right then, you know, I said, you know, would be great, because my daddy would play a harmonica like is on the record, but at the very beginning that sounded like a train starting up and starting to take off. And I said, it'd be great if we could put him on the record doing that part, you know, and then it goes into the song.
Yeah.
And that's how all that came about. You know,
how was it when you told him that, when you said, hey, by the way, I'm going to do your song? I mean, did he just like explode in happiness, or what? Was he just tickled?
Oh, absolutely. You know what, man? He, you know, after all those years of being a musician, and to all of a sudden have a song explode and become a hit rock song, he was really overwhelmed by that. I mean, that was awesome. Just, you know, and especially when he would go tour with us and appear with us, and that song, all of a sudden he would step up to the microphone. I would introduce him every night as the world's oldest rock star. And he'd come up to the microphone and step up there and start to play the intro to Train. And the audience, I mean, you could imagine 12, 13,000 people in a, you know, in an arena. He didn't know what to do. He couldn't even hear himself, you know, it was so loud. But he was quite the entertainer out there with us, as you could see in the pictures.
Yeah. That's
he
great.
Enjoyed himself, man. It made me really happy that that I could do something for him, because he and my grandmother, you know, adopted me and raised me. And it was at a time when, you know, I was born with a respiratory illness, and still have it today, with a lung condition and all that. And so they gave me, and my old man especially, gave up pretty well much, a lot of his life, you know, so that I could survive.
Yeah.
And so it really made me feel good that, you know, that it came full circle, that I was able to, you know, to give back something to him. You know, it all worked out really. It all worked out great.
Story. That is the best feel-good story we could use for 2021. That's what we need, some good stories. That's heartfelt. Man. That rocks, man. So yeah, you have all this musicality in your life, from drums and back and forth. We'll probably bounce back a little bit, but what got you going from guitar and then you started doing drums? Did you go through phases where you're like, because I mean, you ended on Skinner, you started on Skinner on drums, but then you said, no, I'm going to go guitar and Blackfoot, and you kind of go back and forth. Is it moods or feelings? Like, how did you kind of dance between those?
Well, here's the thing. When I was playing guitar, of course, I tried to emulate my old man. He played everything, so I wanted to play everything. And so I took up, you know, after I learned guitar, and I wanted to play drums, because he had a drummer in his band, And I thought the drummer was just one of the coolest dudes. And he drove a cool car, and, you know, he looked great. And his name was Charlie Satterwhite. And I just, you know, I would watch him play drums, and then he'd let me sit on his drums. And it was just so cool, man. Well, I took up playing drums, and then when Charlie left my dad's band, it was kind of a novelty thing to have, you know, to have me playing drums in the band, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, fast forward to late 1970, early 71. It was actually in 70. And I had been up, you know, living up north in New Jersey with Blackfoot. We had been up there living and trying to make it, and you know, trying to get a start.
Mm-hmm.
And things were just kind of going a little sideways. And we had a manager, a woman, and one of the band members got involved with her, you know, romantically. And so a lot of things kind of just got to be real weird. So I wasn't really happy. I said, man, I got to do something else here, you know, because I am just not happy in this. Well, I mean, I already knew Ronnie and Gary and Alan, you know, from Jacksonville. So I happened to have Alan's phone number, and I called Alan, and I said, Alan, Rickey Medlocke. Oh, hey, man. I said, look, man, I'm unhappy in the situation I'm in, and do you guys need a crew guy, a roadie, somebody to drive a truck, or set the equipment up, or whatever, you know? And he said, well, you know what? We do need somebody. You need to call Ronnie. I thought, all right. So he gave me Ronnie's number, and I called Ronnie. And I get Ronnie on the phone. Hey, Rickey, how you doing, man? I said, I'm good, Ronnie. I said, Alan told me to give you a call because I said I wanted to know if you guys needed a road crew guy, you know, somebody to set the equipment up, you know, load, drive the truck, whatever. He goes, you still play drums? Because he had seen me play drums in a band that Blackfoot formed out of.
Okay.
He's seen me play drums in the comic book club, and he liked my drumming. And I said, yeah, I still play drums. He said, well, here's our situation. Bob Burns is going to quit, and we are due to go into Muscle Shoals, Alabama, and start recording our first record. And he said, we need a drummer. And I said, count me in. I'll take it.
It has perfect timing.
I said, he said, look here, get your stuff together. I'll get back to you shortly. We'll send you an airplane ticket, and come on down. So I sold a few amps that I had, kept my guitars, two of my guitars, loaded my luggage up, caught a ride with a friend of mine to Newark, New Jersey airport, and got on what used to be called Eastern Airlines. Boarded a trip on Eastern Airlines nonstop to Jacksonville, and got off the plane. They met me. We went by my mom and dad's. And Ronnie loved my old man because my old man played the blues.
Okay. Ronnie
just, you know, loved the blues. And later on, that was part of the inspiration for Curtis Lowe.
Oh, really?
And, oh yeah. Because my old man would play a dobro on his knee, and there was a line in there. He used to play an old dobro, used to play it on his knee. And plus they dedicated the Nothing Fancy record and a song called Made in the Shade to my old man, because my old man used to tell all of us, you boys keep going the way you're going, one of these days you're going to have it made in the shade, you know? So Ronnie and Gary and Alan used to come over to my mom and dad's, you know, house and hang out on the porch with my dad and watch my old man play the blues, you know, quite often. So we went by that night. They picked me up at the airport, went by. I dropped my stuff off at my mom and dad's, and we went straight to rehearsal and started working up what would become Lynyrd Skynyrd's first and last album, or the Muscle Shoals Sessions, that came out after the plane disaster.
Yep.
So we started working it up. 2 weeks later, bro, I was sitting in Muscle Shoals recording with Leonard Skinner. Yeah.
That's great. That was, what timing. So why did you end up leaving though? I mean, were you just missing guitar, or, I mean, that's a pretty sweet
Well,
gig.
here's the thing. When you're a drummer, you got to have a lot of air intake and a lot of stamina.
Mm-hmm.
My air intake, of course, was limited with what I got, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, I was missing playing guitar, and people could not understand how I could, you know, get up there and sing in front of people, you know, and sing the way I did and play guitar and be a front man and go through the whole, you know, everything. And even today, people wonder how I can stand up in front of an audience and be as active as I am and stuff like that. Well, I got my own protocol that I do with my doctors and stuff like that. And I try to take the best care of myself I can, you know. But I felt like at the time, I really felt like they needed someone that could actually take them further as a drummer. Ronnie said, you know, Rickey, you lay that beat down and you play right in the groove. You got a great groove bone. You're right dead in it, you know. But I just felt like that, you know, they needed somebody, you know, that had the better stamina and just an overall better drummer, you know.
Yeah.
And I guess I was the Charlie Watts of Lynyrd Skynyrd, you know, at the time.
Yeah.
You know, I laid a great beat down, but I just felt like it, you know, I just felt like they needed somebody better. And I was missing playing guitar and singing, you know. But it was really an interesting deal, Sean. My dad told me at the time, I remember going home one night from rehearsal, and I said to my dad, I said, Dad, I said, I'm seriously thinking about leaving Lynyrd Skynyrd. And he goes, what? Why? I said, because I need better stamina, and my breathing capacity is limited. And I said, it's not fair to those guys.
Mm-hmm.
He said, well, understand something, okay? He said, understand, if you make that move, you might not never get another shot at something ever again. This might be the one that's in the cards for you and for you to go forward, you know? Yeah. And I really felt in my heart, I told him, I said, Pop, I really feel in my heart, you know, this is the right thing to do and that it's all going to work out. And I mean, I sat and I really thought about it for a long time. And so I made the move. And it was tough. I mean, but I kind of dwindled for 3 months after I left the guys, and I had to get a job and kind of do something with my hair because my hair had gotten out of hand. It was long, and But I got a job and made do. And then 3 months later, Jack, the drummer for Blackfoot, him and Charlie were living in North Carolina and came to Jacksonville to find me. They heard that I had left Lynyrd Skynyrd and was working a job. And so I came home from work one day, and I had no sooner gotten in the house when there was a knock on the door. And I went to the door, and it was Jack. I said, Jack, what's going on? What? And he, well, let me back up a little bit. He had called me first and said, Rickey, this is Jack. Me and Charlie's in town from North Carolina. Oh, yeah, we've got the band back together again. And we've got a different bass player than Greg, a guy named Lenny Stadler, because Greg was playing with a group in New York called the Tokens. And the Tokens was a band that had out the old hit song, The Lion Sleeps Tonight.
Yep.
So Greg was playing with them. Anyway, he said, I want to come over and see you. Okay. So Jack came over. He walked in. My mom and dad were so glad to see him. They loved him like he was their own son. And Jack and I, were like brothers. We'd gone to school together. We hung out together. We played together. I mean, rode up and down the highway together. I mean, wow. So we went driving around, and Jack said, Rickey, all that other stuff is over with now. Come back. Let's do this over again. Let's do this band again, and let's go for success. He goes, you be the leader, the front man, the singer, and we'll just be the band. And I said, okay, I'll do that. Well, I went home, told my mom and dad I was off to North Carolina to start our own thing. And wouldn't you know it, I sent demos to Jimmy Johnson and Muscle Shoals that we had just recorded the Leonard Skinner record with. And he loved the demos and wanted to produce the band and sell a record deal. So that's how that hooked up. So actually, the one thing that happened with Leonard Skinner actually turned out good for us,
No, it feels like it's almost karma, because I think you're the only guy in rock and roll history who's actually left a band that was breaking and said, I think you guys could do better. I'm gonna go get a regular job and just go. I don't think that I've never heard a story that's like the reverse. And then it came back to you in spades and good energy, man.
Well, man, you know what I always did, Sean? I like to think of myself as a very, I'm a spiritual person. I follow my heart. I listen to what's around me and what goes on around me, and I draw the energy, and I go with what I truly believe. And when I was a kid growing up, I never second guessed, never really second guessed myself up until a time period. And there's two times that I second guessed myself. One, when I left Skynyrd, after a couple of months, I second guessed myself. Did I make the right decision? But it would always come back. It's going to be okay, Rickey. It's going to work out. Everything's going to work out for you, And then the only other time that I did was after the original Blackfoot had broken up, and I had several different versions of the band. I put out a couple of records on, independent label. I mean, we were playing a lot and making money and, doing it, but it wasn't catapulting me to where I really wanted to go. I was already in my, man, I was already in my early 40s. I was like, man, and, do I really want to keep doing this? I mean, then I started second guessing myself. I was like, maybe it's not in the cards for me anymore. But then that old voice in me came back to me. Something's coming. Just hang in there. Something's coming. Well, a turn of events, it was so cool because my mom, she used to tell me on the phone, the Skynyrds are coming, when they would come to Jacksonville and play or whatever. And she succumbed to a massive stroke and laid in the hospital for 7 weeks. And before she passed, she said, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. You're going to be fine. Well, that was in 94. March of 94, as a matter of fact. And so weird. The end of 95, I got a call from Judy Van Zandt, Ronnie Van Zant's widow, saying, Rickey, we're premiering Freebird the movie in Atlanta. And the guys, all of us would like for you to be a part of it. Would you like to come up and do the premiere with the guys and do the All-Star Jam the night before? So we got everybody's coming. I said, I would love to. Well, the band guys that I had, they weren't too happy with me, but I canceled, I canceled out a weekend full of dates, and I went to Atlanta.
That's a special gig though. I mean, that's a huge moment in history.
Yeah. And I went to it. I went to Atlanta and I saw Gary again. I hadn't seen Gary in so long. Saw Billy Leon. And it was kind of like surreal. It was almost like I'd never left in a way. The friendship, the camaraderie. So I did the jam that night, and my manager, Al, was standing next to their manager, Charlie, and they were watching us on stage and watching the audience reaction to myself and, the way the jam was going and stuff. And it wasn't until they introduced me and I walked out on stage right by myself in a sold out Fox Theater with an acoustic guitar. And I sat down and I played a Highway song acoustically. And when I finished it, the audience just stood up,
Yeah.
And their manager, Charlie, looked over at my manager and said, we need to get this guy back in Skynyrd. He said, Gary has talked about it for several years, but the timing's got to be just right. And they talked to me about it. Well, I came back here to Fort Myers. I came back and had my studio here and went back to writing and doing whatever, but I was just so excited maybe to hear something and just wasn't hearing anything, and I was like, damn, man, that was perfect for me, Finally, pardon me. Finally, I called my home one day, and you had the old style answer machines with the tape, and everything.
Oh yeah.
And there was a message on the tape. And the message said, hey, brother Rickey, it's Gary. I want to come down to Fort Myers I want you to learn I Ain't the One, Saturday Night, That Smell, and Freebird, like Alan plays it.
Yep.
And he goes, and if you pass the audition, I'll give you $1.50 in a Snickers bar. So I was just elated. I had a week to get ready.
Yeah. Were you still in Blackfoot?
Well,
at the time?
Yeah, I was still doing the.
Did the guys know about this could happen, or just kind of to yourself?
No, they didn't know.
Okay, yeah.
Because if it didn't happen.
Well, I get why. I just didn't know if that was like the hammer was going to fall.
So, what was interesting was because everybody has asked me before, what was the most difficult song, for you to learn, Alan's rhythms and leads. Well, my style and Alan's style was very similar in the fact that we both loved Eric Clapton, and kind of emulated Clapton and then did our own thing, our own style.
Yeah.
Well, I sat down and learned those 4 songs note for note. And the easiest song, believe it or not, and people think I'm crazy for saying this, but it's the truth. Easiest song to learn was Freebird. The ending, because the ending is done in sections.
Yep.
So I knew the licks he was playing. I'd already played Freebird on drums. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And I knew where it was all coming. And I had Freebird down in no time. So Gary came down to Fort Myers, him and an entourage of guys. They were all having a good time and drinking beers and everything, And they walked into my home, and I had a CD player set up on a little amp and had my reverse body Firebird plugged into it. And Gary said, "Show me what you got." So I reached over and hit, the CD player. I Ain't the One came on. I started playing right along with it. Played right along with it all the way. Played right through the lead. Played the lead note for note. And as soon as we went right back into the last verse on the CD, as soon as it went back, Gary reached over and turned it off. I went, "Oh shit," He goes, "Man, that was damn great." He goes, "You want to do this?" I went, "Hell yeah, I want to do it. Are you kidding?" And he goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, let's go call Johnny, because Johnny's got concerns that, you were always a lead singer, front man, and a guitar player, of course, but, he's concerned that this might not be your thing." I said, "Call him, let's get him on the phone." So we got Johnny on the phone. Gary said, "Johnny, I got Rick here. He wants to do this. Let me put you on with him." So I get on the phone with Johnny, and Johnny says, "Hey man, are you sure you want to do this?" Because he said, you've always been a lead singer, front man. He said, "You're a great singer. And you sure you just want to be the guitar player?" I said, "Johnny," I said, "my old man had a great saying that I'm going to reflect on right now." And he said, "Yeah, what's that?" I said, "My old man used to tell me, if you can't ride in the back seat of a Cadillac, you'll never get to be the driver." And I said, "I'm in the back seat." So I've been in the Cadillac with the other 2 guys for 25 years now.
That's the
And
best.
you know what, man? I never regretted the decision that I made. We're like family. And it's an interesting deal, Sean, because Gary, the one thing, that we've always been asked about constantly, is about the plane disaster. And, the whole bit,
I wasn't going to ask you that, actually. I'm okay.
And so Gary knew that It was a kind of a coincidence. See, I mean, I had been to their studio in Jacksonville, took my old man over to see Ronnie.
Mm-hmm.
And we had been at their studio there in Riverside in Jacksonville. And Ronnie had mentioned to me, asked me, do you want to go ride with us for about 3 or 4 shows? We got our own plane and you can, maybe jam or just ride along or just be with us, whatever.
Oh, wow.
And I said, I would love to, Well, Blackfoot ended up getting shows right before they took off for their first show. So I couldn't go. So the afternoon they took off from Greenville, South Carolina, I came into Columbia, South Carolina. That's how fate is,
That's amazing.
And I've always believed in timing and coincidences and fate and all that stuff. Well, I was on stage that night and was just finishing up our show when a guy walked up on the side of the stage and said, hey, man, did you used to play in Leonard Skinner? And I said, yeah. He goes, your buddy's had a plane crash tonight. Oh. And I thought the guy was just drunk and didn't know what the hell he was saying,
Yeah.
And so I beat it back home and called my mom and dad, who was in, of course, Jacksonville. Called my mom and dad, and the phone hadn't even rang one time when my dad picked it up. And I said, Pop, tell me it's not true. He goes, it's true. He said they just came on TV and announced that Ronnie was one of the people that perished. And I was just like, oh no, I said, what about, Gary and Alan and Billy and Leon? He said, well, they've said so far that they survived. So for a while, I kind of thought to myself, maybe if I'd have been there and maybe I could have said something or, talk to somebody, talk to Ronnie or somebody, and maybe I could have made a difference, of them getting on that damn thing. Even if they had to cancel the show that night, at least they'd be able to make it up at another time, But Gary told me verbatim that Ronnie, when Ronnie made up his mind, that was it. You followed the leader. So we're fast forward now.
Thank you for sharing that, by the way. I wasn't going to ask you, but thank you for giving that.
Sure, man. And fast forward, in 1996, we did a European run, my first European run with Leonard Skinner. And Blackfoot had already been a formidable, very popular band in Europe, Well, we get on the bus that night. It's one of them double-decker buses, and we get on the bus, and I'm sitting up there, and Gary's right next to me with Dale, and Gary reached over and hit me on the arm. He said, where were you? And I looked at him, I said, where was I? Where was I? What? He goes, where were you that day? I went, oh. I said, Gary, you guys had just left Greenville and I had just come into Columbia. He goes, wow. I said, yeah. So, hey, call it. And I said, Gary, I often thought to myself, had I been there, maybe I could have said something or done something. He goes, yeah. Rickey, you couldn't, there's nothing you could have said or done. He goes, you know what? It wasn't meant for you to be there then. It's meant for you to be here now. And I promised Gary, back then, Gary got me back in the band, which I dearly love him for, and he's a brother, and he's real special to my heart, and he and Johnny, and his wife and Gary's wife Dale, as far as that goes, the whole band is, but those two guys, man, you
I
know,
get
I've had a long history with them. And you know what? I promised Gary at that time, I said, Gary, I'm going to tell you something right now. I'm here with you all the way till one day, till the last note in Freebird is struck. And I've been there ever since, 25 years, man. So there you go, you know.
Well, thank you. That's incredible. It's quite a
Yeah, man. Yeah.
quite a feat. I mean, I know in the past you did things like you did. I wanted to ask you, step back a little bit. While you were doing this in Skynyrd, you also had started Blackfoot up again, but you were the producer or something?
Well, I mean, you know, here's the deal. You know, a lot of people had asked me, you know, Rickey, are you ever going to take time out from Lynyrd Skynyrd when Leonard Skinner's not on the road to, you know, to maybe do a reunion tour with Blackfoot or, and really, to be really honest with you, Sean, there was no time. With Leonard Skinner, man, we were working, you know, we worked constantly. I mean, we were doing 90 to 100 shows a year.
Yeah.
So after I did 90 to 100 shows, 110 shows, I was beat, you know? Then plus, you know, I got to be really honest, you know, I believe in my heart that bands will try to go back and recapture a magic that they had.
Yep.
But when you're young and you're hungry and you're, you know, you want to chin the world, man, you know, you want to succeed. And trust me when I say this, we didn't get into music to become rock stars. That wasn't our sole purpose. We got into bands and music and the art form because we loved music. We loved the art of standing up there and entertaining people and have people love the songs.
Yeah. You guys are musicians.
Yeah. So, you know, all these guys, Mozart, he didn't get into playing piano because, you know, he wanted to be adored and all that. He got into it because he was a badass on the piano and loved to write music, you know?
He couldn't escape it. It's all in his head.
Oh, yeah. So
you don't have a choice.
So, you know, to me, what was really interesting was when I would get asked that question. I would even go one step further and say, look, you know what? If there was ever a chance that, you know, Blackfoot would get back together for a reunion tour, I don't think it's possible because Jack, the guy that he and I wrote the songs together, you know, along with Greg and Charlie and if Jack's not there, I can't see doing it, you know?
Yeah.
So, you know, people, we got an outcry from a lot of people that they were hungry for Blackfoot. So a partner of ours at the studio came with an idea. And of course, he had seen that, you know, Kiss had started tossing around the idea, and Farner was already doing it about somebody of original status being involved with guys that would go out and play under the name, record under the name, and tour under the name. So this partner of ours came to us one day and said, I have this idea. Okay, what's the idea? I would like to see if you would like to think about maybe, you know, and he threw the idea out there about new guys and you know, the whole bit. And I said, well, let me think about it. Let me and Al think about it. So Al and I thought about it for a couple of days, and we went back and we called a meeting, and I said, the only way I'm going to do this is if I can produce it, be the sole producer, because I own the name.
Yep.
Write some of the music, play on the record, you know, and then I'll do it. So we handpicked, you know, one guy, a guy by the name of Tim Rossi. And so all of a sudden material was written. It was all got together. I took them in the studio and recorded the Southern Native record. Southern Native was written by me. And if you saw the video, that's me and my gal there at the very end of the video playing with the guys and on the video. And you know what? I like the job of producing.
Mm-hmm.
I like the form of being able to, you know, it's an art form, and it's a way of expressing and creating, and I like doing it, and I enjoy doing it with those guys. And but there's guys, you know, all of a sudden they got antsy, things weren't going the way they thought, the way they should. They started second guessing everything, and it just kind of dwindled, you know, it fizzled out. And then all of a sudden the COVID thing came along. So yeah. There you go. You know, and isn't it ironic? My 25th year with Blackfoot, with Lynyrd Skynyrd was spent in a shutdown. I mean, I got back with them March of '96, and all of a sudden, 25 years later, March of 2020, here we are, you know? It's the weirdest thing, man. Weird.
So actually, well, the Blackfoot thing is kind of interesting because, like, some people would say they'd be cool about it because they weren't performing, they want to be involved in it, the creativity. But the other part, some people be like, no, that's kind of my legacy. I was known for that band. If the band goes south with it, or you have to deal with the turmoil, other people in the band are like, yeah, we like it at first, but also we're evolving to our own thing. It's really our band because we're doing the touring, and we don't want to be a puppet. You know what I'm saying? There's like so many dimensions to that monster. And for you to say, I want to do the band and it's my creation, so I want to be part of it and keep single focus is cool. So obviously to navigate those waters, you know, obviously you've seen that a lot of treacherous. Or to say, take a chance with saying, what if the singer or somebody tanked and goes, because not everybody always knows the singer or visually, you know what I'm saying? The band, they can be like, Blackfoot, I don't really like the new album. What happened to his voice? Or, you know what I'm saying? Like the legacy of that.
Well, what you got to do is, you know, really what is important is the music.
Mm-hmm.
The legacy of the music. The music, I wanted to keep it out there. And here's the thing that I was doing now. What I was doing, those guys would be playing gigs and I'd do select gigs with them.
That's cool.
I'd go out there and play with them. And it was working. It was working great. But they had other ideas. I mean, I could get all into it, but it's not worth it. And it did what it did. It fizzled out. And so, you know, we're not sure what we're going to, you know, I'm not sure what I'm ever going to do. I mean, I own the name. It's just sitting right now. And I don't know. Maybe we'll do the same thing, or maybe I'll take it and do something, or who knows, you know?
Well, kudos for trying. I mean, it's a really creative outlet. You know, I'm the kind of person that believes a band needs to do what they need to do. It's like being at a job for 20 years, you know, sometimes members change, sometimes this changes, sometimes you don't want to do the same album, sometimes you don't. It's up to the band. And I'll say, I'll embrace a band, put out a couple albums that I don't like or I don't get. Keep doing it. Be original. Do what you want to do. The band needs to be the band. So, it is your band and your vision. So if you want to do that with your vision of the band, then you can try
here's the thing. If it's got to have, it's got to have viability to it. It's got to have creativity to it.
Mm-hmm.
It's got to have some kind of authenticity. You know, for Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley to do it would be kind of interesting because they wore makeup.
Yeah.
So they could get guys that look great and, you know, the whole thing to put on the Kiss makeup and the clothing and stuff like that. And they could go out and be Kiss.
Yeah.
A little bit different when Mick Jones has done it with Foreigner. But I saw Mick in Detroit. Foreigner opened for Kid Rock, and my gal Stacy, she's one of his backing vocalists.
Kid Rock? They actually opened for Kid Rock?
She works in Kid Rock. She's one of his singers. She's one of his singers.
I'm saying the band actually opened for Kid Rock. That's interesting.
Foreigner did, yeah. So they were in Detroit playing a series of gigs at, you know, Pine Knob, or DTE as it's called now. But I went on one of the final nights and I ran into Mick. And Mick and I have known each other for many years. As a matter of fact, you would love this. This picture was taken. Mick Jones played in a group called Spooky Tooth.
I remember them.
And way back, man, I'm talking about, this has been way long time ago. Here I am.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Opening for Spooky Tooth. Seriously, opening for Spooky Tooth in 1969, 1970. That was right before I went to Skynyrd.
Wow.
And Mick Jones and I saw Mick that night, and I had done touring with the original Blackfoot. We had toured with Foreigner many times, done shows with him many times. And I told Mick, I said, Mick, that's an interesting deal that you're doing now. And he would come out and play with them and on select gigs. And it really, that kind of thinking back on that is what kind of put me over to doing it with Blackfoot, trying it with the foot, you know? So anyway, it was a good experience. I thought it was a cool thing to do. You know, we got, you know, you get all kind of different feedback. You know, it's not the same. Of course it's not the same, because it's the year 2010, 12, whatever. Yeah. It's not 1979, you know? So, but it is what it is. And it was a fun project.
I think it's a good idea. I mean, because I think Mick took a lot of hits for it in the beginning, you know, how it wasn't true or whatever. But the band, he's proven his point, because the band's going great. I mean, the singer is Kelly Hansen. He's fantastic. He does a good job. He was in Hurricane back in the 80s.
Right.
Fantastic singer. So it's really good to see him get a second breath of life in that success too. I was always happy to see that. But the whole band does a spot on job. So they're playing out now. Know who's the last laugh, you know? So I think it is possible. And I think, you know, if you end up retooling it, you could do the same. I mean, it's proven. So the last question is, I mean, you've really been very succinct with everything.
Yeah.
Skynyrd was ending the farewell tour, but then it was going to be an album, and then COVID happened. Where are we right now with Skynyrd? Because the world froze while you guys were kind of doing your last lap, sort of, maybe, but doing some recording.
Okay, let's look. Okay, we did, you know, we were doing the Last of the Street Survivors farewell tour, and really what it was going to be was that we had decided, you know, we had been doing year after year after year the long, you know, 75, 80, 85, 90 shows, 100 shows a year.
Wow.
And Gary had succumbed to heart problems and just felt like he just could not do that anymore, you know? So what we decided we decided to do that. And what it was, it was a farewell tour, a farewell to doing all those kind of tours that we had done. Not to say that we weren't going to, like, you know, there was talk of shutting down, you know, after it was all over with, shutting down for a year, recording a new record, putting it out, and then going out and maybe doing, you know, weekend here, a weekend there.
Yeah.
Maybe
like flyout dates and stuff.
Maybe an in-house thing in Vegas, and you know, doing stuff like that. Well, now this whole COVID thing kind of like left a lot of fans hanging.
Yeah.
Because people had bought tickets for the year. And we went out and did the very first 2 shows of 2020, which was on the 7th and the 8th of March, a year ago. First show was in Savannah, Georgia. Second was in Lakeland. And then we were to fly to Fresno, California, do Fresno, Reno, Nevada, and then just continue on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we did the first 2, and the world got shut down. You know,
how crazy does it feel? Like your whole life you've toured. How has this year been? Like, you're like crazy, huh?
Well, I'll be honest with you, man. I'm here at this house, and big enough to where I get up every day and yell, "Hey, are you there?" And the next day I hear myself asking it, you know. My gal, we have a little lake house, you know, up north.
Yeah.
And she was up there and I was down here, and all of a sudden the lockdown happened.
Oh.
Well, we haven't seen each other in over a year now because of this pre-existing condition of mine.
Oh.
You know, my doctors are saying, you know, Rickey, you got to be really careful, you know. But thank God for FaceTime.
Yeah.
You know. But now everything is starting to ease up a little bit. I'm going to be able to travel here soon and hopefully get it all back together again like that. But as for the band, there are shows starting to show up, you know, on the calendar. I just saw a thing on Instagram today from one of our, you know, managers of Leonard Skinner, and showing the festival that we're playing on June the 4th in Panama City.
Oh, good.
So it's going to start easing its way back up. And I think Skinner's got a long way to go now. We got, you know, we can't leave. We can get back into the plan and get back into it. Can't leave fans hanging. And the band sure don't want to quit playing. I mean, I know I don't. You know, and, you know, with Skynyrd and, you know, and then even side projects, I'm always going to play.
Have you been working on anything over the past year? Like
yeah,
an acoustic album or something, kind of like a little thing for you?
Well, I've got a main studio here in town.
Yeah.
Cutting room where I cut that new Blackfoot stuff, you know.
Yep.
And I got a mix room here at my house.
Nice.
And so I have been out working on stuff. I got to tell you, man, it was a really strange thing, Sean, to all of a sudden go from playing and traveling all the time and being on the go, because I'm a guy that loves to just go.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we got shut down, and I felt like a fish out of water. You know, it was a tough thing, man, to sit here every day and, you know, wonder what the hell was going on. And, you know, and, you know, I'm not a guy that gets on, you know, that uses his platform for politics and religion, you know. So I wasn't about to do that. I said, I'll just get immersed in what I do, which is music or fishing or, whatever around the house. And, that's how I've spent my year, It's been hard, but guess what, man? All of us in Skynyrd, we feel like we're tough SOBs, so.
You look great. I hope I'm half as healthy as you are when I.
Well, you know what, man? I just had a birthday in February. I just turned 71.
Happy late birthday.
Yeah, thank you very much. But I feel good.
You look fantastic.
I try to eat as clean as I can, and I used to be a big into the gym, and all of a sudden the gym got cut out.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't go to the gym, so had to develop stuff here at home to do, and ride my bike, be on the boat, walk. I mean, just keep active. You know what I mean?
What about playing guitar? Has that changed a little bit for you, or because you've been so healthy, it hasn't affected your fingers at all?
No. I mean, if you look at my hands, I've got no arthritis at all, and I've been very fortunate.
Oh yeah, because you hear different things from different artists. It's always or touring hard, playing guitars hard, or I've talked to some people like, how about drumming? They're like, I have to start working out. I can't stop playing for 3 months before a tour. And I talked to somebody else who's been playing for years. I said, do you do anything? How you feeling? And he's, I don't know, he's up in his 60s, and he's like, no, I don't do anything. I don't warm up. When I'm not touring, I don't do anything. I just play out. He's in a heavy metal band. I just play out. Like, no difference. It's crazy how it's so different for everybody.
Yeah. Well, what's really funny is that one of my heroes, Keith Richards.
Yeah.
I love Keith, but look at his hands. Bless his heart, man. I wondered to myself, how's the guy, how's he gripping the guitar?
Yeah.
It must be very painful for him to, but you know what? God love him, man. He's
still doing it.
Boy, he's still doing it. And I love that about him,
Yeah.
It's interesting. One of the things that really sticks in my mind, a lot of people, they, years ago, Grace Slick said, rock and roll is not for old people, it's for the young at heart. And, she didn't like seeing guys that had success get up on stage and try to be, rock and rollers and all that, Well, okay, Grace, but here's the deal. You're born, and when you do this is what you do. Just because you turn 70, 71, 75 years, that doesn't mean you got to quit doing what you do.
Mm-hmm.
I love music, and I love the art of music. I love making music, and I love entertaining people. And Merle Haggard was interviewed one time, and it's a pretty famous interview, but the girl asked him, she said, it's obvious you don't need to do this. You've been doing this your whole life, Merle. Why are you still out here doing this? He said, why? Because this is what I do. I get up every morning, and this is what I do. This is my life. Well, it's the same for us in Lynyrd Skynyrd.
I see that. You're a musician. I can imagine if you didn't get the call, I bet you would have been working and you would have been in a band or writing music. You were probably doing music on some level for the rest of your life.
Yep.
Because that's the difference. Like I said, you guys are musicians, not rock stars. Once you get to a certain amount of money and bills are paid, it's all whatever. It's still about writing music and playing. You guys don't need to do it. And there's a certain point, it's not even about money. It's about it's what you do. And you don't know what else to do because it's in you. That's who you are.
Well, Lord willing and the creek don't rise, Skynyrd will be back out this year. Hopefully we'll play maybe, I don't know, 25, 30 shows or whatever, and then continue on from that. We really, I think we need it after this last year. We need it for our head.
I would imagine you guys have a bunch of songs, all of you guys separately, that need to get together collectively.
Well, Johnny,
I got a batch.
Gary, Johnny, and I formed a little production team called Three Southern Gents. And we produced one song called Last of the Street Survivors. And on our new DVD that was filmed in Jacksonville in 2019, when the DVD's coming on, a piece of that song is at the beginning of it. And on the live CD version, I think the whole song is on there. But we want to, Gary, Johnny, and I want to take the band back in the studio and produce a whole record on the band. And that I'm looking very forward to.
Well, I think the band got a nice shot in the arm when you came back too for songwriting. Publicly, other people have said that too. That you.
Well, I appreciate it.
I think it's fresh blood. It knows about anything bad about the band before. I just think because you were a family, and so it was like having you back in was like home. So it probably even healing and cathartic on some level. It probably had so many different layers,
right?
That it brought to the other guys that it made it exciting and fun, but yet comfortable. I think it opened, spots in the brain.
Well, I'll tell you something that's really interesting is that when I got back into the band wanted to take it back. It was starting, they were, pardon me, they were starting to try to push it really country. And when I got in the band and Huey got back in the band, when both of us got back, it took on all rock then, And
Good.
Gary said, I want to make it rock again. And that's what we did, man. I said, Gary, I'll do my thing. And we'll just let it go at that. And Gary and Johnny and them, Gary and Johnny's never tried to stop me from being what I am,
Yeah.
And it works out. It's family, great. And it works out great. And here we are,
That's awesome, man. This has been fantastic, man. I'm glad you're doing good. And I want to thank you for talking tonight.
Oh, I thank you for having me, man.
This has been really good.
Yeah.
Any last things people should look out for or check out of yours? Just
no, I mean, you know what, man? It's interesting. I miss. I don't know. I miss the camaraderie of being together with the band, and I miss talking to the fans. It's kind of, isn't it kind of funny that I even have gone as far as, I'm on Cameo now, and, and I have fans hit me up now left and right, man, just to, to make them a video, to say hello to them. And I try to stay in touch with people. Instagram. I'm not a big social media guy. I'm not a Facebook guy, and I'm not on Twitter, but I have an Instagram page, and I do all that kind of stuff and check it every once in a while. And I love that people, I go in there and post something every once in a while, and honestly, to be really honest with you, I like my privacy. We do.
Yeah.
Stacy and I do. We like our privacy. I have a daughter who is 29 years old now. She's doing great in her life.
Wow. She's
a good kid. And, now I can turn around and look back at stuff. And you know what? From a boy that came from the rough side of Jacksonville, Florida, on the west side, I didn't do too bad, So
you did great. I think.
And I'll tell you something, man. It never fails to run across my head. I was very, very blessed to have played with not one, but two great Southern rock groups.
Yeah.
And that is unusual, So like I said to you before, early in this interview, I never second guessed myself that I wasn't going to make it. I always knew that it was going to open up for me and I would be there, So Thank you for having me today. I appreciate it, Sean.
Oh,
and you know what? My big hellos to everybody up there in the New England area and the North Country, and hopefully, my God, I hope we get to see you again soon. You know, I really do.
Yeah, I'd love to see you guys. You come out here. I'd love to come out and check you out. I want to thank you. I will.
Yeah. Oh man, listen. My pleasure. It was a real honor for me to be with you, and I thank you.
Thanks, man.